If you like, we can start.
Yeah, let's go ahead and start. Iru's going to show us some things, probably starting with NASA, talking a little bit about Kennedy, I think, and playing that all into it. So, Iru, go ahead.
Okay, so the show today, I prepared, more a few modern stuff in terms of more technology stuff that comes from my background, from my professional background. But before entering this in this subject, because I see your live stream of today that you talk about the Kennedy assassination, and for me, when you started to see the videos that NASA provide us in terms of the moon landings, the Apollo missions, you immediately going to recognize that they are totally crap. I mean, in terms of the technology that they use, it's very clear that they use one of the most advanced technologies of the 60s, which was wires. And, they are doing even today, so they don't change so much. But it's really nice when when you pass that information. If you are a little fan of the history, because the history has a lot of clues to understand our present. I mean, these are things that maybe the globeheads or people that they are, denier of the possibility that the moon landing was fake, they don't take into account the really history part of that situation. I mean, I know that maybe some of the stuff that I'm going to show everybody out there already know, but the first thing is that there was an operation that was the Operation Paperclip, and that is a real operation where the United States and the Allies, took one of the best scientific guys in German and bring to America, of course, under pressure, under with the gun in the head, and say, okay, now we need that you work for us, and trying to take out of the planet, if you want to see in that way. And that mission and that operation is 100% real. Nobody can deny that kind of things. So for me, it's like supposedly after the Second World War, the Nazi, they want to hunt it, all the Nazis, but at the same time, they bring to America and also to Latin America, in fact, in Argentina precisely. And they give a welcome, and you're going to work with us, and we are going to use all the propaganda media to take you to the people and make that the people love you. Because in Werner von Braun not only was like a Disney artist, but he also was in the cover magazines like Times and other magazines, other paper news. So trying to bring up the hero of Werner von Braun, which was a Nazi.
Right. Originally, they tried to hide it and keep it down, and then as soon as it started to be found out what happened, well, of course, they had to put a happy face on the fact that they had brought over former SS, former Nazi officers. So, of course, it became a PR campaign right after to promote him through Disney and through ABC and the other channels that did this this whole idea of space, well, basically propaganda.
Yeah, in fact, if you want to see, just a little plus of the history part about what happened, between that they started with the Apollo program and to the end, which was the supposedly moon landing. There is out there, I think I asked you in that trip to California, and you say that you saw it, but it's called Houston, We Have a Problem. And it's out there. You can even see from Netflix. And it's supposedly, it's like fiction documentary.
Right, like a mockumentary, they call it sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. But when you start to looking, when you start to disassemble the documentary and start looking what this documentary present in terms of official narrative, all the pieces is real pieces. I mean, from the first guy that create the idea of the rocketry, which was this guy, I can't remember the exactly name because it has a strange name. This is the guy. Let me just this guy, Herman Ponocir Nurdum.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how to pronounce it, but this guy is real. It's not like a fantasy character
mm-hmm.
in the history. It's a real guy who presents before, at least, I don't know if work together or not with the Nazis, but I believe it's not working together. But this guy presents a lot of the concept of what we understand like a space program. So that part is real, and even when you start to looking, I can't remember exactly the time in the movie, but supposedly Yugoslavia, I don't know which is how you pronounce in English.
That's
that
correct.
Country.
Yeah, same.
Okay. That guys from the Yugoslavia, the government sell to United States, the space program, and
right.
Of course the space program doesn't work. Because everybody knows that we can go beyond the karma line, and they trick United States. So when the United States start to see that they spend quite billion of dollars in that space program, and that space program doesn't work, they started to send for example, the astronaut to Yugoslavia, and you can see here the records. Here you can see JFK with the Yugoslavian, dictator, United States called dictator, but the people in Yugoslavia doesn't account for that, because Yugoslavia was a poor country, and after selling the space program to United States, the people in Yugoslavia start to rise up the lifestyle.
Right.
It's really becoming, if you go to the history after the 60s, before the 60s, Yugoslavia was, another poor country, if you want to see it in that way. And after the 60s, right. Yugoslavia become really a great industry and a nice place to live. And this guy was in power, selected by people like, 30, 40 years. In fact, he died, in very suspicious way over the stress that but you can see JFK with that kind of government at that time, making all the arrangement to buy the space program.
Right.
And, after that, you're going to see, for example, real footage when United States, see that the space program was, no fake, but it doesn't work.
Right.
He feel really bad, and he sent it to visit this dictatorship. This dictator. They sent it the astronaut Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong and Michael Collins to talk with the Yugoslavia dictator. And if you listen carefully what he said, Neil Armstrong, in his own word, says something like, "We come here with a few things, but we're gonna come to America with more than we bring us." So. If you start looking in terms of that, in the 70s, United States invaded Yugoslavia.
Right.
And they here, I think here you can see it. This is Neil Armstrong.
Yep.
Go to Yugoslavia and meet the the dictator or the president or the elected military out there. They have this meeting. Here you can see Buzz Aldrin and Michael Collins. So what these guys are doing at that time in that country?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, no.
So
people think it's a joke of a documentary, but again, sometimes you have to do that to kind of get the information out. It also happened with another moon landing film. I can't remember the name of it. Do you remember the name of the documentary? And actually, one of the guys who's in it and makes a comment about Nixon knowing that the moon landings were faked, and he showed up dead the day after that interview. Do you remember that one?
I didn't know it. In fact.
Yeah, I will get you some information on it. I can't remember the name of it, but yeah, it's another one of those mockumentaries. It was like a French mockumentary about the moon landings. I'm sure somebody in the chat will tell me here shortly. We'll know what I'm talking about.
And in fact, I believe here is the part where Neil Armstrong talked with the guy in the government. Let me just.
But we are taking more than we brought.
But we are taking more than we brought. Like, it's like a, handshake about, hey, you sell us that bullshit program, the space program, and now we're going to take your country, literally. And that is what's happened. And in fact, it's really, really a comedy if you want to see like that, because after this situation, this guy, the guys from the Yugoslavia start to thinking in what to do. In fact, here you can see Nixon and the government and the guy, and the dictator. So that dictator survived like 3 presidents in a row of United States, and just the same president that supposedly, worked in the space program.
Right.
And after that situation, this guy, of course, the Yugoslavia doesn't have the money to give it back because they use it in their own country.
Right.
So they create one of the most, piece of shit in terms of car technology, and you bought it again.
And do you remember? Not me. I didn't buy anything. But
no, at your country, man. I mean,
thank you. I do not speak for them. But and how much was it? Wasn't it billions?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of money.
Billion. Yeah, a complete lot of money. And that was the famous car called the... you remember the name? Here is the the Shugo.
Yeah.
The Shugo car. And in the history of your country, this is the worst car ever. And that is for real. I mean, so they scam you. I mean, you like a country with the space program, and then they scam you with the car. So after that, United States, you are not going to play like that with United States. So after this situation,
explain what happened.
Yugoslavia was, invaded.
Right.
So if you want to see this documentary and tell me that this is, just a mockery documentary, you are crazy. For me, that is my point of view. So I really recommend everyone, to add a little tiny piece of evidence about the moon landings and how deep that thing goes. Because if a country can, invade it via or based on the moon landings problems, it's another important piece in our history.
Very much so.
Exactly. So
the whole idea of space has always been this otherworldly thing, and it's been able to be sold and bought and sold, and continues to be sold to the public at large as truth. And it was even done, years ago between countries, obviously. Here's a short clip, real quick. I'll just play. Have a listen to this. This is from I believe 1963. It's a Dr. Philip Abelson, but just listen when he's called to Congress to talk about the moon. What he's going to say here. So,
June 10th, 1963, the Senate Committee on Aeronautical and Space Sciences. Scientists from outside NASA are called before the Congress to testify. The lead witness is Dr. Philip Abelson, director of the Geophysical Laboratory at the Carnegie Institution of Washington. He gives voice to one opposition view, talking extensively about why he thinks going to the moon is a very bad idea. No recording of this hearing exists today, but the hearing transcript exists. It's read here by an actor.
I have conducted an informal straw poll among scientists not connected by self-interest to NASA. The vote was 110 to 3 against the present manned lunar program.
There are... So, I mean, you even have in front of the Senate committee real scientists voting 110 to 3 against any idea of going to the moon. It was completely ludicrous. But again, sold to the public as fact because, well, we saw it on TV.
We saw on TV, exactly. That is one of the most efficient tools for convince or for managing the public opinion.
Exactly.
Because they induce you to vote what they want or to select the governments on power. I mean, the guys who are gonna run the government for supposedly your freedom or your benefit.
Right.
But it's just a tool of induction, if you want to see it that way.
Absolutely.
So this is, this kind of things, like I told you before, I mean, this is undeniable, history, like the Operation Paperclip or this kind of situation with the Yugoslavia, which is related with the moon landings. And of course, this is a really nice piece of research, if you want to see in that way. It's called The Nazis Next Door. And it's like how the CIA and the FBI secretly sheltered the Nazi war criminals, but with really documents and how they start to working in this MK Ultra project that for our for politicians, for mass media artists, and even for scientists, if you want to see in that way, it's called MK Ultra. And with this kind of study, they created for the regular people what is MKT, which is marketing. They induce you to buy things or to buy ideas, which is more dangerous than buy, material things, because they know how to operate in your brain with subliminal message. And that is when start to, like I talked in my presentation in Colorado, that they know that the magic exists, and the magic is a word that comes from magnetism. So our brain waves are electricals, and if you want to see in that way, also magnetic waves. So they know how to operate that. And if you have the power and you have the instrument like a television, which is a equipment, when you research the US patent, you're going to find that it's patent for alter your nervous system via electrical waves. So you can start to see the whole picture.
And you've shown
how
that,
they operate.
You've shown that patent before, right?
Yeah, exactly. I showed that patent before. If you want to, I can show you again. It's no problem.
Nope, there is a patent. I'll back you up on that. That the patent for changing someone's mind or getting into their subliminal mind from television programming.
Yeah, exactly. You just type U.S. patent nervous system manipulation, and you're gonna have it. The monitor equipment, a computer monitor or TV set.
Right.
I mean,
there's one of those in every home.
Yeah.
Or 6.
So, exactly. And they do this kind of idea. It come early with the radio station. That is why in the words they give free radios to the normal people. So when you start to see these kind of pieces, you're going to understand that. And of course, Werner von Braun, he also worked with the Picard family. They are all together, like we shown in the last episode, the connection between Disney, the Nazis, the JFK, all that kind of things. And when I in the conference with the Globalisation show that we did with Bob and Sean, I talk about that the supposedly when you research about the and please understand that I'm going to back and forward between PowerPoint project, but when you start to see and research with the Argos system, that this guy start with the a quote from Vernon Brown, and that quote, but here is the quote. Can you read it, please? Your English is better than mine.
Right. It says, "It will free men from the remaining chains, the chains of gravity, which still tie him to this planet."
Exactly. They use this quote but after all the efforts that this guy Vernon Brown did for trying to really break the chains of the gravity, I believe that is why he ended with the Psalms. Psalms, I think is in English 19, which let me just get back here.
So
and
Psalms 19:1 he's talking about, which is on Werner von Braun's gravestone. Exactly.
The heaven declare the glory of God, and the firmament show us his handwork. And when you start to see, this is my opinion, of course, but all the depiction of our plane of existence, it doesn't matter which culture you're going to research, you're going to find the same kind of concept artist, or concept art, sorry. The concept art of the dome and a plane, circular plane covered with the dome and the waters above and below and all that stuff that everyone knows at this point in time. Mm-hmm. But when you start to combine this with just some quotations from the actual politicians and science guys, let me just play it quickly.
Sure.
And here we have it. It's just a few.
One thing I really want your generation to embrace is that the Earth is a closed system. We cannot leave the Earth. There's no place to go.
The history of humanity has been, slowly increasing the boundaries of knowledge and knowing more and more and more and feel comfortable inside there. But at the edges, it's always going to be a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Edges. It's always going to be a challenge, absolutely.
And it may be hard to see tonight, but we are all standing under a glass ceiling right now. But don't worry, we're not smashing this one. The young people in particular, I hope you will hear this. I know we have still not shattered that highest and hardest glass ceiling, but someday someone will, and hopefully sooner than we might think right now. Although we weren't able to shatter that highest, hardest glass ceiling this time, thanks to you, it's got about 18 million cracks in it. And the light is shining through like never before, filling us all with the hope and sure knowledge that the path will be a little easier next time.
So, that is why I just, like the concept that maybe we are Atlantis. In the concept of being under, quotes, water, like the regular story about Atlantis.
Mm-hmm.
Just simply as that. And, after seeing all these politicians and science guys talking about enclosed system, they shatter the ceiling, shatter the highest glass ceiling. I mean, who write the script for politicians? I mean, they are not, maybe, people, think like Hillary is going to spend a few nights, writing the perfect speech to. No, that doesn't work like that.
Not going to happen.
That can happen, exactly. So, it's just like, it's difficult, but you need to trying to put the pieces together to understand what's going on. Because, for example, the Hillary's speech, it wasn't just in a random time. It was at the beginning of the Flat Earth movement, or the modern Flat Earth movement. So, leave it or take it, but there is. And in fact, for me, when these guys talks about the shutter, the highest glass ceiling, that for me doesn't exist. For me, is another situation up there. It's not. It's like a crystallization of gases via, which is called the superfluid, under almost the zero Kelvin temperatures. And if you want to, in other episode, I can share my research about that. And I have a really deep research based on the Robert Bassano findings. And then I just, add few steps if you want to see in that way. And I create some simulation also to trying to, explain myself about what is going on up there. But, things like, because when you show that speech from Kennedy, he talks about, sharing information and sharing also or creating a cooperation between Russia and United States to explore the moon or to, explore the space. And it's something that, caught my attention because these two countries not just share the information about the space, but before they trying to, reach the moon, both countries create and start the same kind of high altitude hydrogen bomb operations. Not just United States, it's not just the Operation Fishbowl and Dominic. The Soviet has the Project K. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he was aware. I believe that, yes.
Yeah, no, they were around the same years. It's kind of like a little story where the United States makes the first nuclear weapon, and then Russia does it right after. Then the United States makes the first hydrogen bomb, then Russia right after.
Exactly, and both of the programs reach the same altitudes. For example, the 8 kilometers weapon to 8 kilometers high altitude, and the Soviet K nuclear test, Project K nuclear test, also reached the 80 kilometers in the atmosphere. So when I see this kind of programs, and I see maybe some of these are fake, like some people talks about, not exactly these ones, but the supposedly Hiroshima Nagasaki bomb. But here is one particular bomb. We can start to see the implication of the symbology in his rocketry, because they call it Thor, and Thor in the Norway, right? Mythology, it's the guy with the hammer in the hand trying to, break the ceiling. And that the same depiction is like the archman trying to shoot an arrow to the sky, trying to break the ceiling, like you can see in the movie The Hungry Games. Mm-hmm. But here you can see what they did. And for example, this kind of explosion is really, for me at least, a strange explosion, because it's not just the fire explosion. It's also like combine it or mix it with some kind of electromagnetic field, because you can see the tendrils of the fire, going to the center and do this kind of behavior. Like it was like something like, touching some kind of electromagnetic shield. And for example, this other explosion, you know, in the high altitude, I don't know if this is in 80 kilometers or 60 or 30, whatever. You can clearly see the expansion in form of the donut. And for me, this kind of behavior is like some barrier up here is not allowing to this explosion take the regular shape, you know, like a hemisphere shape, like the other low altitude explosion. Some things, I mean, for me, something here is like reach some kind of limit. Maybe I get wrong. It's just my interpretation, but here you can clearly see some kind of or reflection or just energy that cannot pass over that limit. I don't know, but the expansion is clearly like a donut. It doesn't move up. So nothing. I mean, you have all these kind of things, and supposedly we take out with rocket thousands of rocket launches, and the equilibrium of our thin atmosphere never disturbed. You know, nothing happened. We don't have any kind of air leaking or nothing. You know, it's just like everything get back together, but get back to the rest state.
Right.
And nothing happened.
Nope.
But a nitrogen bomb, you know, maybe doesn't go up there. So what this is what, you know, a little bit, I'm sorry for the Spanish, but this is the kind of propaganda that the United States and Russia creates together to convince the people that they are going to reach the moon landing. Of course, after, you know, behind this, every of these pictures, there was a Yugoslavia guy that arranged all this, but you know how the things are, and this is the first false flag event, maybe related with the space program, which is the fact that, you know, and this is for me is when the starting point in the last or in the end timeline of event that really show the work about the two countries together. Because if you research in history, after the First World War, the Russia start to dissolve. I mean, the URSS, the Soviet Union. You know, I believe was in the 1893, 1882, you know, around the last 20 years of the before entering into the 20th century, it was a meeting with the Rothschild guys, you know, all these families, and the Russians. I mean, the Union Soviet Tsars. Right. I don't know if that is how you pronounce Tsar. Is correct?
No, USSR.
Yeah, but let me just
CZAR? Tsar?
Yeah, the Tsars. You know, the family with Nicholas, that was the last Caesar or Caesar of Russia.
Tsar.
And
you said it right, Tsar.
Yeah, thank you. And in that meeting, and it's writing in history, I mean, this is not in something that maybe, you know, no, that is our history. In that meeting, in that, you know, it was like the modern Club of Rome or Bilderberg meetings. The ex-Soviet Union must play a role for the New World Order. And Nicholas rejected that proposition, and after that, the United Kingdom and the Rothschilds declared, you know, a war to this family, and they killed everyone in the Nicholas family. So after the First World War, when the Second World War started, it was all arranged. And if you see in history, for example, the mutation of just, you know, I going to just let me put it like this. I mean, maybe it doesn't have anything to do with this event, maybe yes, or maybe does. Sorry for my verbs in English.
No problem.
But when you see, for example, how they changed the flag, and for me, the colors and the motifs of the flags has to do, you know, some kind of with the brotherhood.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that they share. If you look, for example, United Kingdom and the Australia and the Chile flag, they all share the same color, the same kind of stars, and they are colonies of United Kingdom.
Right.
Even United States is like a colony, if you want to see it that way.
No, absolutely.
Because, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, man.
No, go continue.
No, and I mean, for example, if you study your own history, you're gonna see that first you was invited by Spain, like us, and then England took the power of Spain in North America to the crown, and the same thing happens here with the
Right.
Independence Day. It wasn't the real Independence Day. It was the day that the United Kingdom took the power from Spain.
Mm-hmm.
It's just simple as that. So when you, for example, look into the flag of the United States, United Kingdom colors, and the modern Russia, they both, you know, share the same colors. And like I said before, maybe this is nothing, you know, this is not some concrete evidence, but which is, you know, some kind of concrete evidence for me is when you start to look into Stalin, some of the Stalin picture, you can clearly see that the guy was a Freemason, because no one do this kind of you know, hand cover
Right.
without being a Freemason.
In the jacket constantly.
Yeah, exactly. So this is some red flag to understand that Russia and United States and United Kingdom are work together, and this is my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
so when you see, you know, because maybe some people believe that these things about and please tell me if I mess up everything. I don't know if you are follow me, and you know.
So far, so good.
Okay, perfect. Because, you know, a lot of people believe that the situation, this is for David.
If
It's for
anybody
you,
wants
David,
to,
situation.
anybody wants to know, we play a drinking game when Iru's on. If he says situation, take a shot. So take a shot. Go ahead.
Take a shot. Exactly. So
The other drinking words are Jesuit, and if he calls me Sharon.
yes, and penis. Penis is like a complete, you know.
That's the entire bottle.
Yeah, the complete bottle.
Right.
So let me just
Get back to the situation.
Yeah, let me back to the situation, and that situation is the blue bean. You know, there is a lot of researchers in Spanish language and also in English, and I believe any, you know, part of the world.
Any language.
You're gonna find in YouTube that talks about the blue bean, and they, you know, not just in the title of the YouTube video, but then when they start to explain about the blue bean, they never mention the real important word behind the blue bean, and that is the NASA blue bean project. Which, if, I know, I'm sorry. I mean, if you see with our eyes of flat earthers, and you read NASA Blue Beam Project, everything starts to, you know,
change.
change, exactly. So it's not just the NASA Blue Beam Project, which is mean. What is mean in this document is what is telling you is that the NASA is going to direct all the operation. So that is why all the other agencies appear to be independent, but they are all dependent of NASA.
Right, always. I think
Always.
it's something that many people still fail to realize. They think that Russia's out there running their own independent space agency, and that SpaceX gets to come and go as they please. No, everything goes through the hands of the master deceptors, NASA.
Yeah, exactly. And in this document, which is, I believe, from the 60s, 50s, or something around that, it talks about the creation, the manipulation from one of the best instruments out there, which is the television set or monitor, because they're going to create things like Star Trek, Star Wars, and Space Odyssey, 2001 Space Odyssey, for prepare of the invasion and space protection. And when you see this, and you remember the famous speech of Donald Trump talking about the creation of the Space Force, you can see that this document doesn't bullshit. It's completely real. And this is an agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you start to continue reading the document, you're going to see that all this NASA blue beam is to prepare humanity to present a new God image, like a new Messiah, and they're going to use an universal supernatural manifestation. And we have the technology to fake meteors that is called Star Alley. That is the company that they can create. You can order around $10,000 a meteor shower or a Star Trek shower.
You can even pick the color.
You can even pick the color, exactly. So if that is just like a regular company for events, you can imagine what is behind the scenes. But what I mean is we have that technology already. Absolutely. And when you keep reading, you're going to see here that one of the partners is going to be who? The Soviet started to feed the computer with objects, blah, blah. But here also you realize that United States and the false Soviets or the Masonic Soviet is going to work together in space programs.
Right.
And the people believe or they think that this kind of agenda start in the 60s or in the 50s because, how the modern technology or when the modern technology was created to allow this. But one of the best for me that they killed Bill Cooper, which was one of the best researchers or really a guy who, understand the world that the New World Order operates, and he denounced the Twin Tower, Twin Tower operation
before it happened.
And at that time, because the social network are developed like at nowadays, if you kill the messenger at that time, it will be better. But for me in our time, you must be killed like thousands of messengers. So it's not like a good idea.
But back then, it's a difference, and he ended up dying right on his doorstep.
Exactly, because at that time, the most advanced technology for sharing internet data was use robotic modem. Church, beep, 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 you send it 1 megabyte in 24 hours. You can even share a picture
right
at that time. So that is why they kill it. But when you look into the idea of the false alien invasion, it started in the 1890s in Japan meeting. It's not something about our days, in the modern days. And just let me, this is just movies because they use Hollywood, of course. And let me just trying to find that video. Give me just a moment if you want to,
no problem.
So far make kind of resume.
Yeah, no problem. I do see that you're showing Dr. William Greer there, but he talks a lot about the same thing.
Yeah.
They call it, revelation or disclosure. One thing you have to remember is that if there's ever a disclosure and it comes from a government agency, it is a lie. I mean, that's just should be simple for anybody to figure out. So I hear all this talk about, when is there going to be this alien disclosure? Well, make sure you look at who it's coming from. If it's coming from your government agencies, that disclosure is part of the narrative. Is part of the narrative. So be careful.
Totally, exactly. In fact, they have even in Netflix. This guy has a lot of the documentary about the contacts one, that kind of thing.
He found a little mini Bilu.
It's some kind of that. Yeah, totally, man. Just give me 1 minute more, because here I have a few a few folders to trying to. But for me, it's a little bit important. And here I found it. I believe I found it here. Just let me know. This is Babylon. Bill Cooper also talks about, of course, all the Babylon mystery, old school mystery. But he had a really nice speech, but really a really nice one. And I believe I found it. It's a lie, but I'm going to expand my my searching.
Take your
Sorry,
time.
guys,
take your time.
Out there.
Well, hopefully everybody's interested in hearing more. You can leave a comment if that's something you're interested in, because you and I were talking on our long drive and thought we do have so much to talk about that we should continue this little series. So maybe we won't end at 3. If people enjoy it, we'll keep going. I know Iro's got lots to share. I've seen a lot of it, but a lot of stuff I still haven't, because his videos are in Spanish, and I struggle listening to that. So it's great to bring him over here and have him share some of his research. And again, I want to spend more time on the 3D modeling and all the things that we can do inside that to show. For instance, I've already seen videos starting to show up about the sun and moon clock app that I showed on my video earlier, and people saying, well, here's your disproof of the flat Earth map, because the sun sets right to left down in Australia, and according to your sun and moon clock app, it needs to rope around to the right. And there's so many things that are explained perfectly and quite easily with the personal atmospheric dome and the way that we would see the sunset. So I want to model a lot of that. So hopefully we can do that coming up soon.
Exactly. In fact, all those guys that talks about that curb the water. If you want to disprove our model, curb the water.
Right. No, they
under any gravitational model you pick, you choose. Like the Einstein, Newton, maybe you can invented some new one, but please curve the water, and after that you broke down our model. So here I have the clip of, it's just a 2-minute clip, but for me it's really important to you guys, the guys really like the Blue Beam, project in terms of understanding how they start to play this agenda between United States and the Soviet Union started. This is a great clip to trying to understand that. So here we go.
This is Bill Cooper, and here we go.
But over the years, I've done a lot of research. What I've discovered is there's no proof existing anywhere that extraterrestrials are real, or that have ever visited this planet, or that they exist anywhere in the universe. There is not one shred of evidence anywhere. There is lots of evidence, tons of it in fact, that there are a group of people collectively known as the Illuminati who want us to believe in some extraterrestrial threat from space so that they can cause a world government, bringing together of all the people to resist that external threat. And the first time that I saw any reference to that, I was reading some papers from the Carnegie Endowment Fund, and there was a record of a speech. It was a dinner for Viscount Ishii of the Japanese delegation, the Japanese imperial delegation, in 1917. And John Dewey was one of the speakers. And the first sentence out of his mouth as I was reading this almost fell out of my chair, because this was in 1917. And he said, the best way to cause all people of the world to come together in one world government and end war forever would be if we were attacked by some other species from some other planet. And boy, that just clicked with me, and I knew that that this is just another scam. This is the age of deception. There's no doubt about it. And then 8 times during Reagan's administration, he inserted almost the exact same phrase into 8 of his speeches. And it's a scam. That's what I can tell you. What they call UFOs, these craft that fly around the sky, are real. But they're not piloted by some little green guy from some other planet. But over the years...
So, for me, it's too much clear. I mean, that is the way that I think that the series of events it's developed right now.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And thank you to Carlos Pagan again for another super chat and contraption as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, you know, when you start to look in that kind of stuff that Bill Cooper shared with us, and you start to, you know, put all these series of events together, you're gonna see that the real, how they transfer all the supposedly science fiction movies about the space and aliens and monsters to the real life, to the real scenario of the real life. And this is the first event. You know, I mean, the first event that creates in the people's minds the idea of the Copernican model, it was with this satellite.
Right. Yeah, it's certainly interesting then that you look at Werner von Braun and you know what he told his secretary Carol Rosen about what would be the final deception.
Exactly, and it's a little strange because, you know, if you first of all look at these shiny balls, you know, with this kind of window shield clearing stuff.
That's Sputnik.
That's funny, yeah, man. I mean, look, this technology is amazing.
It's amazing.
So this thing orbits, still is in orbit, because it's still in orbit without any thrusters, any kind of propulsion, you know, fuel, nothing. It's still in orbit.
Oh, come on! It has 4 very long antennas.
4 very long antennas. So this thing, it doesn't have even a camera. So supposedly this apparatus can hear the voices of the United States people from the space.
Well, we know because we heard it. We heard the beeping noise.
Well, exactly. So how the people in our days can believe this?
I don't know. It's painful.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. It's sad, and you know, maybe if you were born today and you got to watch NASA with their fancy cables, and you got to watch NASA with their CGI and their augmented reality, maybe you believe it. But not when you have all the access to the footage from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. You can't believe this shit.
You can't believe this shit. Totally. I mean, it's really sad, man. I mean, it's really sad. You know, the people that trying to defend the Copernican model, they need to, because they needed to believe in this kind of thing, in this kind of technology.
Right. No,
which is something, you know, if anyone in our day propose, I'm going to recreate the Sputnik and put it in orbit. Like, you know, the NASA guys did it like in an anniversary. They drop it by hand, you know, from the ISS.
Right.
Do you see that? So it's completely
yeah, it's nonsense, and it's all done via balloons, as we've discussed before, and people just they can't seem to grasp that either. That they just don't get it. I mean, it's like NASA, every time they launch their rockets from the coast there in Florida, they get that whole water cleared for hours in advance. Nobody can go anywhere near it. And in the history of NASA launches, there's never been an emergency dump out in the ocean. It's never happened once.
Never.
No, but yet they clear it every time as if it's the biggest ordeal. Well, it's because the rocket goes up and dumps out in the water. I mean, and otherwise you would just let people do what they're doing. You wouldn't clear the water, all the work that goes into clearing that entire ocean as if something's going to fall in the water. It's just the same thing as when they launch these balloons. I just made my presentation in Denver, and I was just pointing out at the end of that thing, they said, after this close accident here where it knocked over this car, we'll never again allow people to watch our balloon launches because they're too dangerous. And so Iru and I were joking around saying that there can be no more car races anymore because one time a tire flew off and killed a few people in the crowd, and therefore now people race NASCAR around an empty track, I guess.
No, terrible, man. I mean, it's hilarious.
It's ridiculous. The stuff
it's ridiculous,
The stuff they keep pumping out that people keep taking in and believing is baffling. I mean, I'll show this video again because I just...
Please.
I'm just going to transfer over here just real quick. Let's see. Remember that this has been passed off as being real. I mean, that this, and people believe it. In fact, I saw a tweet, and I don't remember who I saw it from. I think Michelle Gentz had it, and also Bob's son had it as well. But somebody has a tattoo of this scene on their arm or leg. Look at that. I mean, it's just... this is a test. This is to see how dumb the public is, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but they're pretty dumb.
Yeah. In fact, I'm starting to deviate for this presentation, but in fact, how much time we have to, make it like a 2 hours show?
I don't remember if we started. I think we started a little after 8, so we've got 45 minutes or 40 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm gonna have, because I'm going to trying to cover that thing. But for me, like I told you before, this kind of history, history timeline, it's really important if you want to really understand. Because when you become a flat earther, it's a nice topic, trying to understand a little, the hints that the history leave to us to research. Right. So here you have the first 4 flag, and here you can clearly see the thing about the cooperation between Russia and United States in the Blue Beam NASA project, and you can clearly see with real news and real fact how the speech about JFK did in your video start to go into reality. Mm-hmm. So of course we can, we know the connection, and you can see the past and the present is the same kind of name, the same kind of stories, the same kind of bullshit. It nothing have been changed.
Mickey Mouse all over it.
Again, please, I didn't hear you.
I see Mickey Mouse all over it.
Exactly, Mickey Mouse all over the place. And of course, when you start to research about the Walt Disney family and why they cooperate together, is because even the Walt Disney himself was a Freemason. He go to this kind of school, that the Molay International School, which is a Freemasonic, preparation in the young, for the youth.
Right, and of course people know that he owned the Club 33 out at Disneyland, and I'll show an image right now. Iru, I don't know if you've seen this image.
Okay,
up here. This is when NASA got a stamp dedicated to them, and guess what value the stamp was?
I wait to see in the live stream, because you are not sharing via Skype, so just give me a second.
Well, it's a
or
33
seconds.
It's a 33-cent stamp, of course, with the footprint there. So just more evidence of these guys and their connections.
Yeah, I did. I'm seeing. Oh, yeah, 33 USA and the stamp, you know, the where is the humidity in the moon for this, you know, thing happen?
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy, man. Exactly.
I'll go back.
It's totally crazy.
You got
but
some
they
Walt
did
Disney
it.
stuff.
They,
There you
know,
go.
They do it so, and they can create everything because it's in the studio, so they can do whatever they want. Here you can clearly see how, you know, Bernard von Braun become an Disney artist, like you know, Justin Bieber or, you know, Katy Perry. They have all this kind of stuff for walk around. So can you imagine? I mean, in the mind of the own Bernard von Braun become a Disney artist.
Right.
It was a nightmare.
I cannot imagine.
It was a nightmare, really. And you know, we heard about Bill Cooper talking about that there is no proof of alien technology, but we have a lot of proof that a group of people, you know, name it Illuminati, that blah 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 blah, and some way to put that in real content or real situation. I have prepared this tiny clip, really tiny clip, about a minute, to, you know, it have a background music that I put because this is just a segment from a video that I made a few months ago. But this is real speech, real people, real politicians all talk about the New World Order. And that New World Order, the only achievement for that New World Order happened is based on the heliocentric model.
Out of these troubled times, a new world order can emerge, a new era.
If we needed a new world order.
Global governance and
a new world order.
Novus Order Seclorum, a new order for the centuries, for the ages, forever.
That new world order and what America.
Global governance.
a framework for global governance.
Of Europe and a new world order.
Came a new Europe, a new world order.
I think a new world order is emerging.
Really a new world order can be created.
A new world order.
And creating the kind of world order that I think all of us would like to see.
So, the New World Order, simply as that. I mean, if this is, you know, sometimes when I see this kind of real events, I still wonder if this is a science fiction, is a movie, or is our reality.
Seems like it sometimes, huh?
Seems like this, yeah, totally, man. And I mentioned before that, you know, how this guy Bernard von Braun, you know, feels about working with Walt Disney and you know, lying to the world, because I don't have the same thoughts about the Nazis that maybe our institutional education, our education institutions tell us. I don't say that that guy was awesome, and but I have a different opinion. Maybe it's a little complex to express myself in terms of that, but I mean, this guy, when you see the tombstone with that kind of, because supposedly he's using a religious quotation from the Bible.
Exactly.
It's not just a random, you know, like, oh, I am a philosopher. Yeah, philosopher guy. So I'm gonna, you know, in the tombstone, it doesn't. It's even. You know, from his family,
right?
Quotations. It's just that,
and just that alone, too. It's making quite a statement.
So you know, when I trying to think, or you know, trying to understand what in his mind happened, And based in all this situation that he made about trying to get out of space, this is, anyone out there could believe whatever they want. Maybe they believe, some guys believe that this a secretary from Wernher von Braun is, a shield or not. But what she said this like 10 years maybe before this thing about the Space Force coming. So can I play it?
Absolutely.
My name is Carol Rosen. I'm an educator who became the first woman corporate manager of an aerospace company, Fairchild Industries. I'm a space and missile defense consultant. I've consulted to a number of companies, organizations, government departments, even the intelligence community. When I was a corporate manager of Fairchild Industries in 1974 through 77, I met the late Dr. Wernher von Braun in early 74. At that time, von Braun was dying of cancer, but he assured me that he would live a few more years in order to tell me about the game that was being played, that game being the effort to weaponize space. And the funniest one of all was against what he called aliens, extraterrestrials. That would be the final card. And over and over and over during the 4 years that I knew him and was giving his speeches for him, he would bring up that last card. And remember, Carol, the last card is the alien card. We're going to have to build space-based weapons against aliens. And all of it, he said, is a lie. A lie. I think I was too naive to know at that time the seriousness of the nature of the spin that was being put on the system. And now the pieces are starting to fall into place. We're building a space-based weapon system based on a premise that is a lie, a spin. And Wernher von Braun was trying to hint that to me back in the early 70s and right up until the moment when he died in 1977. What he told me is that there's an accelerated effort in place. He didn't mention a timeline, but he said that it was going to be speeding up faster than anybody could possibly imagine.
We're reopening NASA. We're going to be
thank God.
Going to space. Space Force. Space Force.
Space Force.
So we have the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, the Coast Guard. But we have the Air Force. Now we're going to have the Space Force because it's a whole...
It's a dome.
We need it.
We need it, yeah.
The Space Force because it's a whole...
So these are, real event things. And it's happening. It's happening in our faces.
Absolutely. No, they don't hide it much anymore.
Excuse me?
I said they don't even hide it much anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And this is, for me, if you want to translate in time, this is the kind of things that they made to create character like, Columbus, Jesus,
right.
Eratosthenes, you name it, Pythagoras,
Newton.
This is the Newton. Exactly, the Newton. I mean, the Newton, the new atom, the new sun.
Right, and the apple that falls from the tree,
Yeah, everything is, and this is 42 seconds only, but just for leaving in the video presentation, between, all the presidents, the Space Force is carried on by Donald Trump in our days, but other, something that Bill Cooper mentioned about the Ronald Reagan is this famous speech about this.
Mm-hmm. Perhaps we need some outside universal threat. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Maybe the only way to unite this incredibly divided world of ours. They're out there. We better think of how all the differences among people on Earth would seem small if we felt threatened by a space invader.
I'm going to say, I think we're going to have strong indications of life beyond Earth within a decade. And I think we're going to have definitive evidence within 20 to 30 years.
So that woman has a crystal ball, man, because how she know?
Yeah, she just knows because
they
have to be out there.
Definitive evidence of
If
alien
I
life.
believed in the billions and trillions upon billions of trillions of stars, I would believe the same thing as her.
Exactly. So this is real. I mean, you know, I really pray, and I'm not a religious person, but I really pray that guys out there, the globehead, take this into account, because what
they don't,
we are showing
they don't
is
even
real
take,
image from the government.
They don't even take into account where their science came from. That's the scary thing. You know, if they just went back and looked at where all the science came from, it all came from the get ready to drink, the Jesuits.
You mean that they are still receiving the information from the Jesuits?
Yeah, but they don't even realize the beginning of it started with Jesuits. They don't understand that the Big Bang came from a Jesuit. That all the observatories came from Jesuits. That all the Catholic schools of higher education came from Jesuits.
No, it's preposterous. I mean, I don't know if I pronounce it well, but you know, just for the globeheads out there, let me just play this 1 minute clip. No, even 1 minute, 29 seconds clip.
Following Copernicus publications, it is probable the Jesuit order has produced more astronomers than any other demographic in Europe. That, ostensibly, a religious order should produce so many scientists should cause surprise. However, as these scientists have focused nearly exclusively in but one area, this gives us reason to question. Following Copernicus publications...
when you start questioning that, it's become very clear that these guys, as always, are behind of the avatars, magical avatars creations. You know, it's the same guys. They present Jesus, they present any kind of religious character, they are presented the new God image. And it's from this order. And in fact, when you start to see, you know, who are, you know, the agencies behind of the mass media press reseller about space, they are all work together. They work together in the science round, in the movies round, in the history books, in the religious books. It is an agenda. That is the concept of agenda.
Yep, absolutely.
And
you see right there, good graphic to show the vector symbol in the various space agencies. You can see the Caesar's leaves around the bottom Canadian logo.
Yeah, is the Chinese logo.
Oh, the one down at the bottom, Chinese.
Yeah. On the bottom is from Chinese.
Thank you. Same vector
from
symbol.
the Chinese. I mean, they are the worst space agency for fake space.
Yeah,
no doubt about that.
Yeah, Iru and I had a good laugh about that. We said, you know, NASA may be bad, but they're not as bad as the Chinese.
No, even close, even close. So, you know, keep going. So we can finish the presentation, the history about, you know, the presentation. You know, you have all the institutions like Tavistock Institute of Human Relations, which is a fancy name to say we're going to indoctrinate you and make you believe whatever we want. And you know, they create the earliest space parks like Disney. You know, founding with money from Monsanto, the actual Monsanto that we have in our days. You know, the adventure through space presented by Monsanto, the Disney History Institute, the MTV. So, like Mark Twain said, it's more easy to fool the people that convince it that there was foolish. I don't know which is the translation. You know what I'm trying to say.
Right.
And then we have, things like propaganda. It's very curious that the first video that MTV put out there, it was this moon landing video. And of course, they still own Masonic temple. They, awards is still an astronaut with a flag. I mean, in your faces. The Mickey Mouse depiction in the ISS, windows with the airlock, the Disney and the astronaut, all the things that NASA created, the Jack Parson, and even it's something really, funny, because the first time that the modern concept of the alien comes in our generation, it's come also from the Aleister Crowley. Supposedly in the park in New York, the Central Park, making like this kind of ritual, and he received this kind of, they call us angel and demons today, but tomorrow they will call us something else. So this was Lamb, the first concept art from Aleister Crowley in terms of these aliens. And it's funny because if you type it Lamb, but if you type it in backwards, like the Satanist guys love to do, becomes a word in Spanish which means bad, but the bad in terms of the energy. You are a bad people, mal. That kind of coincidence, strange coincidence that these guys have. And of course, Jack Parson was a disciple from Aleister Crowley,
right?
So you can clearly see the connection. This is our original plaquettes,
and
with
all of
the
them,
number of affiliation to Masonic lodges,
right? And all of them friends with L. Ron Hubbard, who we know where he went. Yeah, it's the good old boys that were basically shaping our reality.
Totally,
absolutely.
In fact, one of the concept behind the Masonic sign to put the hand inside the jacket is the hidden hand that create the history or manipulate the history.
Right, the hidden hand. It's also when they talk about the architect that the Masonics or the Masons worship. Not necessarily the architect as one might think, the creator, but the architect of the two celestial spheres, or the celestial sphere and the globe Earth. It's the architect of the paradigm that you find yourself in is what they worship.
Totally. In fact, that name is Gadu, and Gadu means the great architect of universe.
Right, of the universe, because
the universe.
The universe has been created for you. There has been an architect of it. It is a space-based computer simulation.
Yeah,
all
really
the
good one. I mean,
yeah, it's a good one. All the numbers work
graphic
out.
board they have.
Yep, and as long as it works mathematically, they've convinced the world that means that it exists out there in space.
Exactly. And in fact, let me just add of this topic. I trying to find it here because in terms of Masonic things around this concept of the grand architect that creates the world or the universe, it's a really funny thing because I was I'm watching in the other monitor that I have, and I really like to share this with you.
Okay.
Well, of course, let me just put this tiny clip, and I keep searching. All the Masonic signs, the Baal or Luciferian worship from the astronaut, all the hidden message about the Isis concept, like the Isaac Newton, and all that, craps out there. But the Masonic guys, something that I, find a little strange in the old things that they have strange. it's that I believe I have here. Well, of course, in terms of scientific things, we know, but the regular science admitted the hidden Kabbalah relationship between the modern science and the Kabbalah, right?
I'm a theoretical physicist, and I like to say that I walk in the footsteps of giants like Albert Einstein and Niels Bohr. I'm not a philosopher. However, I am rather dazzled by the fact that many of the basic mysteries that we find in string theory and the theory of everything seem to be mirrored in the Zohar and in the Kabbalah.
As a scholar, the most amazing thing of all is the degree to which modern astrophysics sounds like a Kabbalistic text.
When I first made the correlation between Kabbalah and science, I was stunned.
We do know that Isaac Newton had access to certain mystical texts, certain texts of the Kabbalah.
Well, the Kabbalistic description of creation is coming from a single little point, from a speck, and of having matter form and time and space form all together at the very beginning. This sounds very much to me like the description of the Big Bang.
I couldn't believe that the Kabbalists could derive these truths without really knowing any mathematics or physics.
All the things that could destroy string theory, all the things that do destroy every rival theory to string theory, they are all eliminated in precisely 10 and 26 dimensions. These dimensions are magic.
These dimensions are magic.
We physicists don't know where these dimensions come from.
The Zohar says those things. It could have been a lucky guess. I don't know.
It's rather amazing, this uncanny reflection of some of the most advanced cosmology that are mirrored in the Zohar and ancient Kabbalistic texts.
Mirror, nice word.
Right.
But, you know, when you go to, of course, we know that all the characters related with science, they was all Freemason or has some relation with the Kabbalah and the alchemist or alchemy realm. And like I show in the presentation, they have their own Bible that is it's more precisely about what the Bible is. This is my opinion. I don't want to offend anyone who believes that the Bible is, God book, the inspiration book. But in the Masonic Bible, they talk about like Jesus is the sun. You know, the disciples are the zodiac signs, and blah 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 blah. They show that directly. They don't hide behind, like a invented character. No. And it's funny because when in the Freemasonry, they have a lot of layers of knowledge. If you talk with a guy who, reached the third degree, he's going to understand that supposedly the compass is the moral and the rectitude of how the person must be, and the square and the compass is, I can't remember exactly right now, but when you are ascending in degrees, that objects start to have a different meaning. And for example, it's really funny because when you reach the 33 degrees, for example, and you talks about and they give you the moral and dogmas, they spoke like the square is a right angle formed by two right lines, and it is adapted only to a plane surface and belongs only to geometry, earth measurement. The trigonometry, which deals only with planes and with the earth, which the ancients supposed to be a plane. Mm-hmm. That's funny, man. And the compass describes circles, and deals with the spherical trigonometry, the science of the sphere and the heavens. And for example, when you make your own research, this concept with the supposedly spherical earth, on top of the two columns.
Right.
This is not the original depictions in terms of the antiquity of the Freemason. The original depiction was this: the sun and the moon,
right,
and the eye of Gadu, of the great architect of the universe. And after the guys like I presented in, I believe was in the first live stream that we made, which called Elias Ashmole, which is considered the father of the modern Freemason, the Royal Academy of London. They changed this concept to this concept.
Right.
And of course, you know, you have the hidden meaning of the astronaut dressed like a god in white, coming from the heavens. When they fake the moon landings, they go down to the surface on the ladder, like the Jacob's ladder, right? Exactly. It's like an artistic representation of one of the ritual that they play in lodges.
Right.
It's simply as that. So to tie up the presentations, we have, you know, all these guys from the infamous creator of the fantasy of satellites. Remember the name?
Arthur C. Clarke.
Yeah, exactly. Here with the Freemason mandrill, or I don't know which is the name in English. You know,
Apron.
all the NASA guys.
Dress. No.
Dress. Yeah, but the real name is called mantil in Spanish. And here you can see the logo, of course, of the Google Gmail. Even politicians like in Brazil, and this is a modern Brazil guy, become an astronaut and fan of NASA, but he also was in the Freemason, invited with a white, I don't know which is the name in English. We have all this kind of concept depicted, you know, like Luciferian, Masonic. Of course, when you understand how the Hollywood, NASA, and you know are created and work together, you can clearly see this is a picture that you can easily find in Google with the handshake. This is a completely handshake of Freemason between Google and NASA. And this concept that so many people maybe believe that it's just a random handshake, now in our days become a reality when you hear this. When you, let me just, I just played.
In terms of conspiracy theory content generally, our goal is to promote authoritative content to our users. So we have two principles that guide the way here. That's the first one, is we want to provide users with authoritative, trustworthy information.
I'm sorry to cut you up. I only have a minute and a half, and I don't really need to hear what you're trying to provide. I want to know how you're dealing with all these conspiracy theorists on your platform.
So the first way is by demoting low-quality content and promoting more authoritative content, and the second is by providing more transparency for users. So we're introducing boxes that provide factual information at the top of results that have shown themselves to turn up a lot of information that is counterfactual, such as searching for the Earth is flat on YouTube, where you see a lot of
your response is to put a box saying, nope, the Earth is not flat.
Yes, it's flat.
Okay.
Such as searching for
put a box that says yes, it is flat.
Response is to put a box saying, nope, the Earth is not flat.
Oh, great.
Correct.
Okay.
So why that exactly works? You know, they don't talk about the other conspiracy. They talk about the flat Earth specific, and you showed today the situation with the when you type it flat Earth.
Right. How it shows the keywords. Yeah, check out the video from earlier today to see that, or check out on Globebusters or Dorji Dorka's channel.
Exactly. So when you see these happy faces in our becomes reality. When you listen this, and 2 months later, you type flat Earth in Google, and you don't find almost nothing.
Right.
So this is the reality. You know, I mean, people believe that are random things. In fact, when you type, for example, it's a really funny thing, because if you type, I am a flat earther, becomes in English, becomes, I am a crazy person.
Right, I saw that. Thank you, Google.
What? I mean, they are desperate. I mean, they don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
Well, so I take this from the ODD research when he talks about the connection between Disney and NASA. It's a really great video. I really recommend everyone to see it. But here you can start to see, you know, if you put together the Bill Cooper situation, talking about the agenda, the Bluebeam project, the cooperation between United States and Russia, then open the doors for China and Japan and other agencies. But you can clearly see here when the NACA, which is the first stage of NASA, was founded, then the Disney was founded, then becomes all the missions of the Antarctic exploration, the GPL founded, the Disney worked with Vernon Brown, and all the, you know, in the timeline situation until our day. And it's clearly an agenda, there is no doubt about it. And the only way to accomplish that agenda is based on heliocentric model.
Right. And pictures like this one, which you can choose to believe if you want, but there's just so many that are out there mixed with everything else. Then you just have to look at the history. Thank you for the super chat, very much appreciate that. But it just becomes too much to even. There's no way you can even think it's anything other than a scam at this point. I can't, at least. I don't know about everybody else. People are free to believe whatever they want. But all we ask is that you go back and actually look at the history of this stuff, and it becomes obvious as can be. Because then you start looking at things and you say, well, if this was true, then nobody would have ever gone back to the moon. Well, nobody did go back to the moon. You'd look at it and say,
if that is true, we live in the cloudy planet. No Earth, no water planet. It's the cloudy planet.
Yeah, no, for reals. Okay, go ahead. You can continue. I'll switch back over to you.
So I can finish the presentation. So just, you know, for live in the, you know, in the video, we have this kind of a strange declaration of guys like Buzz Aldrin. Let me, well, the first hangout of the PowerPoint project. So let me just
That's not
reopen.
bad. It's only one. It's only one.
It's only one, man. It's the first one. I mean,
the over under was set at 2, so people are hoping it doesn't crash again.
Yeah, after 2, I need to pay Sharon to keep me going.
$1.25 each time.
Hey, $20 we talk in the trip.
$1.20.
In the car.
Oh, sorry, I forgot.
Hey man, you have more interest than the Rothschild banks.
And we're gonna have to tell people eventually how we played the game Synchronicity Walk. Very interesting.
Oh, that we leave that for Globebusters show, I believe.
Yeah, we leave that for Globebusters, but certainly a good time, and we'll tell you more about it on Sunday. But go ahead.
Yeah. So I played that for the record.
Why has nobody been to the moon in such a long time?
That's not an 8-year-old's question. That's my question. I want to know, but I think I know. Because we didn't go there, and that's the way it happened.
So I know that many people out there say that, no, but this is not what he wants to say, you know, like they are reading his mind. I mean, you can take it whatever you want, but after all the videos out there, all the presentation, even his own child's son and daughter,
right?
You know, I mean, you must be an idiot if you believe they go to the moon at this time, man. Really,
I totally agree.
Without any offense, but it's.
Yeah, I mean it in the nicest way possible. But I also understand that people think, you know, if you think the Earth is flat, you're an idiot. So obviously, the two worlds you can live in are quite different, and both people can have beliefs in either one. But I think that clearly the people that believe in the truth and are actually researching where they're living are coming to the conclusion that it's not what they were taught.
Totally. In fact, in our days, you have this kind of statistics. Maybe you need to go to Russia and ask every person in Russia and make your own statistics, but supposedly 57% of Russians currently think that the U.S. claims of successful moon landing missions are lies.
That should be 97%. I'm embarrassed for the Russians.
Totally. No, but this is fake news.
Hey, still,
this was in 99.
It's good news, but it's still disappointing. I mean,
hey, they passed 50%.
I understand the nationalistic. I understand the nationalistic pride and everything that goes with the Apollo moon landings from the United States. But if you're any other country and you still believe in it, holy smokes! Somebody help you.
Yeah, totally. And here we have, like, for example, this is, and I like to share the Spanish equivalent because, for example, this guy Iker Casillas, this is a guy. This is the I don't know how you call this position in football. The guy who is the archer, not the archer, the
goalie,
the portero, the goalkeeper.
Correct, goalkeeper.
The goalkeeper of the Spain selection football. And you can see the star. This is a real tweet account with millions of followers. And he said the next year it become the 50th anniversary, supposedly, of the moon walk on the moon. Right now, I am at dinner with friends discussing about it. I elevate the question to a public. You guys believe that the moon landings was real or fake? I didn't. So this guy is telling us.
You have the pictures right there on the right side of the screen. I can see pictures from space that show the items that landed. So it must be true.
Must be true, right? This is, look at, this is the astronaut footstep. I mean,
the footsteps are right there.
It's in horror. How can you see a footstep there?
Man, and after all this and all the satellites and all the telescopes and all the orbiters and all the space stations, this is what we get for evidence, and people are shocked when we question it. How dare you question space? How dare you? Look at all this evidence we've been given. How could you ever question the magical, unending vacuum that can't possibly exist? Space. It's just crazy.
It's just crazy. In fact, now in our days, one of the narrative about that you cannot see the flag from Mikukaku is like the sun radiations way up the flag. So now the flag lose the color. So now the color of the flag is white, and this camouflage with the surrounding white background of the moon.
You'll never get it then. It's just too white.
It's too white now, man. Oh no, it's amazing. And I mean,
the same Michikaku who says that cosmology is off by a figure of 10 to the 120th power.
Yeah, the same guy. The same guy that talks about also the alien invasions and supports the claim from the king, the Hawk King, the Stephen Hawk King.
Right.
And you know what? I really, let me just play it directly from the Adobe Premiere, because there are out there guys that believe, I mean, the most important achievement of Stephen Hawking is not their supposedly scientific report. It's how he survived 50 years with a disease that nobody survived more than 10. Really? I mean,
I've made video after video after video about it, and even the ALS website wouldn't dare put them on the website until we made a video pointing it out, and then they had to put them on there.
Exactly. I mean,
because they said there's no way this guy has ALS. Everyone else dies within 4 years. I'm not making light of the disease, but certainly making light of the fact that we all bought into the Stephen Hawking story.
Yeah, totally. And in fact, when you see, for example, look at the before the technology, the magic technology of Stephen Hawking, translating the aura of the spirit thought that he had in his brain. It was with a friend. in the university. So this guy, if this guy interpreted really what the supposedly Stephen Hawking's saying, he must be won a Nobel Prize. Because, I mean,
I don't think they give Nobel Prizes for that.
No, but really,
I
man, I mean, look at that. Look at this interpretation of the facts.
Physical appearance and the way he talked about big ideas in a witty and accessible way made him unforgettable, even though he had to use a student to interpret his failing speech.
You wouldn't see anything special if you passed inside the black hole.
No. He didn't see any special thing in the black holes in all. No. That was it. No, it's impossible. I mean, it's impossible, man. I mean, I believe that this is the right time to finish, and everyone out there think about it.